Did you know it's not good for a baby to watch TV, especially below the age of 3? Also, unajua venye ni muhimu kuspend time na mtoi, especially akiwa mdogo. Leo tunaongea kuhusu baby milestone. What are you supposed to do as a parent to stimulate growth and the don'ts? Karibuni kwenye Malezi Bora. I'm your host, Juliet. Hi guys, karibuni kwenye Malezi Bora. It's always good to have you with us, and today we have a very interesting topic, baby milestone. Uko pale nyumbani, mtoto wako hajaanza kutembea. Uko pale nyumbani, mtoto wako hajaanza kuongea. So you're worried, you don't know what to do. So that is what we will be discussing today, and keep the conversation going on our social media, Facebook, KTN Malezi Bora, Twitter, KTN Malezi Bora. Have those questions. Our doc is here. He will be answering them. Mercy is a mom of 2, and she will be sharing her journey in motherhood. Atatuambia milestones zenye aliobserve kutoka kwa the first baby and the second child. So, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. My name is Mercy Munene, a mother of 2 young men, 6 years and 2 years, and another one on the way.
Congratulations. How are you? So, Daktari, many people would love to understand what is normal child development. Maybe you can shed light and enlighten us. What is normal baby development?
Okay, so normal development is usually a sequence of changes with when we talk about in terms of growth, in terms of the language skills, social skills, what we call cognitive or remembrance skills, you know, and as well as the day-to-day skills that they do as they grow up. Yeah.
Okay, and Mercy, you're a mom of 2 boys. So how has your journey been raising boys?
Well, starting from delivery, I think you brought up an important point. My firstborn was born through C-section. It was an emergency C-section,
Okay.
and because the baby was under distress. So after the delivery, he had to be in the neonatal ICU for around 10 days because he lacked some, he aspirated something in the lung. It was a traumatic experience. Yes, because I was discharged and the baby was left in the hospital. So I would get home at 10 p.m. after feeding and praying and, you know, just sitting there and watching other people feed their babies.
Oh.
And then come back the next day by 6 till 10. That was the process for, it took around 10 days. And after that, I got him home. So from that, I got postnatal depression.
Oh,
you know,
really?
I mean, after all that.
Wow.
After all that, and then it's your firstborn. There's a lot of uncertainty because now, I mean, it was a dangerous delivery in the first place. Then I have the baby all to myself. Suddenly, I was feeling very unsure of myself because I felt like the hospital would take better care of the child than I would. So when it got so bad, at some point I used to think, you know, I want to throw this baby down the balcony because he
Oh
used to
God.
cry. No, he used to cry.
Wow.
Yes, he really used to cry. Then eventually we got around to it. And now we got our second child when he was around 3 years. So that has not been so bad. First of all, I decided I have to go through normal delivery because I could not imagine myself going through what I went through. So I went through normal delivery and I got my second child called Joshua. He was 4.1 kilograms.
Ooh,
The other one was around
4.1.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So that one was an easier one. So in terms of even development, I think there was a lot of difference because
Yeah, actually that's what I wanted to ask if
okay.
By any chance you noticed any difference between baby 1 and the second one in terms of growth.
In terms of growth, I would say it's more of, I affected a lot of it. mostly because I had the postnatal depression initially. So I think my being unsure and an unstable place in terms of the caregivers, they would come and leave, come and leave. So that really affected. But generally they grew well, although my second born had a delay in walking. Yeah.
Maybe Dr. Imran, you can shed more light on maybe the age at which we are saying that the baby should be talking, the baby should be walking, so that a mom out there can know nisipoona mtoto wangu akitembea at a certain age, nisipoona mtoto wangu akiongea at a certain age, I should get worried and seek medical attention.
Before we get to that, it's good to know some of the laws that govern development in a child. And it's one of the important things to notice, and you'll actually see, is that development in a child actually goes from head to toe. Okay, so at some point you get head control, then you start sitting on your own, then you start crawling, and then finally on your toes, and you start walking. So it governs into that law that you go from a head to toe sort of a development, okay? And then there's also something we talk about called primitive reflexes. And when your baby was born, and immediately you put the finger on their hand, they suddenly grasp.
Yeah.
That's called a grasp reflex, and that's a primitive reflex that all babies are born with, okay? There's the other reflex where if you let the head go, they suddenly move their hands forward. That's called a Moro reflex. That means if they're falling from a tree, the first thing instant you do is grab onto the tree or anything, right? So these are primitive reflexes babies are born onto. Now, one of the laws of development is that by 3 to 4 months, some of these primitive reflexes disappear. So that from a grasp reflex, the child is now able to voluntarily hold something. So those primitive reflexes should not go more than 5 months, okay? And so that's a very important part of those laws, okay? And then for good development, you need good neurological stability. Both the brain has to be developed very well, and it should not have undergone any problem during delivery, yeah, including like oxygen or any severe jaundice which affected the brain, anything like that, for good development to have occurred. So yeah, so that's important. Now, when we look at the domains of development, right, we look at about 3 to 4, if you'd allow me. The first one is usually the gross motor. When we look at gross motor skills, we look at how is the child sitting, walking, crawling. That is gross motor. Then when we look at fine motor, we look at the fine skills. What is a baby able to hold? You know, what is the relationship between holding, giving, putting or stacking a block of cubes, drawing? You see, that is fine motor. Okay, then of course comes speech. Okay, the speech development. Okay, then of course, yeah, so some of these are the common domains of how we develop. And of course the final one is the social development. Does my child socialize with other children? Are they, you know, segregated and keeping away from others? So those are part of developmental norms. Okay, yeah, so when we look at some of the like gross motor, so in terms of gross motor, we're looking at so we talked about head to toe. So by 3 months, a child's head control should be achieved. And then simply put, by 5 months, they should be sitting with support.
At 5 months?
At 5 months, sitting with support. Okay, going up to even 6 months, because they support themselves by putting their hands this way. But by around 8 months, they should sit without support.
8 months.
At 8 months.
Okay.
And then they start crawling. Around that time when they start teething, they also start crawling. Okay? And finally, at around 11 months, they start trying to stand up with support. Or 10 months, let's say 10 months, they start standing with support. And then 11 months walking with support. And then by 12, you guide them as you walk with them. So by 1 year, 2 months, they should actually be walking on their own.
And there are kids who do not crawl. Is it okay, Ama?
Yeah, I agree with you. So some just skip the stage. I'll talk about my son, being a father of one.
Wow.
Yeah. So his name is Hisham. So Hisham actually crawled earlier at 6 months, and we'll talk about this when we talk about stimulation. Yeah.
Okay.
So as you stimulate a child earlier, they tend to walk or crawl faster. So the more interaction you have with your child, they actually tend to even do some of these abilities better. Okay? When it comes to talking, as you said, right, that's part of the speech domain. Yeah. So usually we tend to the baby starts to make some sounds, you know, as they grow up at around 1 or 2 months they start, you know, cooing. Okay. Then by around 5 months they start, you know, repeating some sounds. Okay. But usually by about 1 year, a child is supposed to have gained ability to say one word. So what I usually follow is the 1 year 1 word, 2 year 2 words, 3 year 3 words. Okay, so that's an easy way to know.
Yeah.
So by 1 year you should be saying mama, papa, twende, bye. Okay, that's one word. In 2 years, joining 2 words. So making a small sentence, mami twende, babi daddy go.
Wow,
You know, it's like that.
interesting.
By 3 words, they at least form a sentence, something like that. You see? Yes.
I heard you say that the screen is also one of the things that maybe hinder normal development in a child, and maybe at
Screen time has really affected us as Kenyans, and it not only for children, for also adults. In our social groups and norms, we are affected. We tend not to have a social life because everyone is on their phone. It also falls down to to our homes as well, and it's becoming a huge problem. So usually what happens is that when you're on a screen or on a tablet or on a phone or on a game, the child is only getting, especially the ones below 3 years old, they're getting sensory input. So they're getting all this information coming on, but they don't know how to process it. You see, so it's just information, but you see, when I pinch you, for example, you're going to move your hand. So that's your motor. So for your sensory input, that means you're gaining that information. How do you mechanically put it out? So there's no interaction, there's no one-to-one. So in terms of like stimulation, it's very important to get rid of these screen times. So that there's a good interaction between mother and child or father and child, okay, throughout, up to at least the time they're going to school, okay, so that at that time then they're able to then interact with others and then know what they're doing and then do a sort of a controlled screen time at that point, like that, you see. But it's actually affecting a lot of speech problems. We're actually seeing this in a lot of our clinics, that children are fully on the screens, but and they're actually talking gibberish because they know all this stuff, they understand all of these things, they know a lot of these rhymes and everything, but they're not able to actually bring it out and process that information and speak it out properly. You see, so that leads to speech delay, and you're right. Once you stop the screening time and you have these interactions, you actually see an improvement. Even going to school and interacting with other children, they end up starting to speak better. Like that.
Wow, actually, I'm surprised because I didn't know screening can be a challenge to a child's development. And maybe are there other things that maybe we as parents we do without the knowledge, na unapata mtoi amekuwa affected, like hajafikia the right development at a certain age simply because of the things we as parents we do without the knowledge.
Absolutely. There are some things, for example, using a walker. For example, you know, at 10 years, you're so excited, your child is trying to stand up, and you say the next best thing is put him in a walker. Now, if you look at studies and if you look at what like the NHS in the UK and Australia, they're actually trying to ban the walker because the walker has many issues. One, a walker is going to make you tiptoe. For example, you're going to start walking, but you're tiptoeing as you push as yourself. So as a baby develops that skill and says, okay, this is how walking is supposed to be, they end up tiptoeing, and that becomes a huge, even economic problem, because now you need to go for physio, occupational therapy, trying to get the child back to flat foot. And then remember that when you're doing a walker, you're sort of skipping the crawling stage. The crawling stage is such an important tool because when you're crawling, you're using your left hand, your right hand. So your brain is making connections between the left brain and the right brain, the right brain and left brain. But when you don't do that, you miss out some of those things, and that really causes. And lastly, the walker is also very dangerous in terms of safety, because you see a child really reaching out to things they're not supposed to, and they can even fall.
And Mercy, mi kidogo nimesikia guilty kidogo, but mi sikutumia walk. Mi sikutumia walk. By the way, wangu wote wawili they didn't even crawl. Waliamka tu, wakatembea, wakashika wapa pale, the next minute they were walking. So you at some point ulijipata kuna kitu ulifanya labda hukujua, and after maybe some time na kupitia through maybe the knowledge ukajua maybe I shouldn't have done this way, ungefanya hivi.
I would say maybe exposure to the sun. My first one didn't have challenges in walking because I tend to believe it was because of the exposure to the sun. He used to be taken out quite a number of times. In fact, I really complained because he came back so dark. But now with my second one, I was more there, so I ensured he was not taken out too many times. Because again, where we had moved to, the sun was quite tough and very windy. So I thought to myself, would I rather he gets a cold or or because of the wind or the scorching sun? So without knowing, I believe I exposed him. I did not expose him enough to sunlight because that is what I was told by his doctor. Later on, around 1.5 years, because I was a bit concerned, he didn't walk. He didn't walk for quite a long time. He was very, personally, he's very careful. So I always attributed it to his personality and his weight because he was quite heavy. But then with time, I also realized that maybe there is something I need to do. That's why I took him to the doctor, and he got a jab for vitamin D, and I was told that it's important. He has to be taken out to the sun.
And Mercy, maybe there's something you've learned in this journey, having raised two boys differently, because you see the milestones za wa kwanza sio zenye uliona kwa the second one. Maybe you can share with us and also encourage another mom out there. What is this thing that you've learned throughout this journey?
My mom, my parents gifted us with a book called Bringing Up Boys by James Dobson. It talks about physical development, spiritual development, and even emotional development, and how we can bring them to be able to achieve their life purposes. Sometimes we tend to put them in a box and want them to be, like this, because I did not become a doctor, therefore this child has to become a doctor. But they're all brought differently, and they have different goals. God puts in them different visions for their lives. So for me as a parent, I feel like I have to be very careful in how I raise each of them. I have to raise them differently because they are different even in their personalities. The first one is out there, very, very loud, playful and all that. But my second one is very careful. He's meticulous in what he does. In fact, if his shoelace comes out, it becomes drama, but the other one doesn't even. So what I learned from that is that God has put in them a different goal in life. So my role as a parent, I have just this 18 to 21 years to influence whether or not they will achieve that goal. And so it is a privilege to be a parent. It is a big role, and I would like to do the best that I can for each of them. Yes.
Okay. Dr. Imran, as we wind up, what are the things one should do to stimulate normal development in a baby?
Interact with your baby first of all, okay, and look in the child looking at you with the eyes, eye to eye, also making sounds, like sticking your tongue out. The baby will actually identify that. Sort of, even reading to this child or even talking to this child, even if it's a one way and it's not interesting, it's boring, keep trying, keep doing it. Open these little books and even sort of have gestures, hand gestures, and saying like, this is cat moo, or cow moo, and cat meow, so they sort of interact with the sound and the picture, so they make a relationship, and then let you lead them, but they should also lead you. You'll see your baby holding you to that book or opening the book for you to read. So that's a good way that you interact, you see. Yeah, and later on, like at around 4 months, put them on once their head control is good, put them on their tummy time. Do a lot of tummy time and interact with little toys, you see, and rub little things with different textures on them, so that they grasp a lot of these simulations along the way. Read to them constantly, and also play with them, stimulate their body. Don't just leave them as their babies just like that. Keep stimulating them, consistencies, and they grow up feeling their environment is alive.
Wow, wow, thank you so much, Daktari.
I think one of the things I've also learned is about learning how to love them differently, because each of them have different language of love. Like I realized that my older son Davis loves to be affirmed. When he does the slightest of things, he wants to be praised, and he'll keep asking you, how did I paint that house? You say, yeah, you painted well. How did I paint that house? He'll ask you that like 5 times.
Wow.
Just keep affirming that he did a good job. But the second one is not very keen on that. He's more keen on being held. He just likes to be held. Just spend time with him and hold him,
Wow.
and he likes that.
Wow,
That just makes his day.
wow.
So I think it's important to learn how they're supposed to be loved also.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow. And for me, I've learned also that the time we spend with our children, especially at their younger age, is very, very, very important, because if I don't spend time with them, it will have effects, maybe actually negative effects with their growth, and maybe baadaye nitaanza kublame labda watu, niseme ni shule sijui ifanyi hivi, niseme sijui ni majirani, sijui family are not supportive, yet ni vitu ndogo pale tu yenye mimi mwenyewe sikufanya. So I've learned that it's very, very important to to spend time with the kids, especially from their young age, wakizaliwa tu. And I really appreciate you guys for having the conversation with us. It's always a pleasure to have you, and we look forward to having you even more and more and more. Wow, asanteni sana. Thank you guys. That has been Practical Mom Lessons, and I'm happy I've learned, and I'm sure you have also learned many things from our specialists and from Mercy. And it is important to bond, to create that bond with our babies, so that we give them what they need so that they develop normally. So coming up next is Mom's Story of the Day.